a trademark attorney's thoughts on the Miss Cleo movie, her rise and fall on Lifetime, because there is another documentary. I'm Queen, the Veiled Lawyer with Bell Terra Law Firm. Today is August 25th, 2024. Happy Sunday to everybody. So, first things first, I don't really watch movies, but I got caught in the advertising trap because I was on Facebook answering a question that one of my colleagues had, and this ad popped up, and I saw the Lady of Rage. So I totally stan and fangirl the Lady of Rage, and so I saw the Miss Cleo movie on the network Philo. So I said, let me check this out because the Lady of Rage is in this. So this movie has to be good because I know that the Lady of Rage is multi-talented. And so she can definitely act. So I am so glad that I watched the movie. I'm very glad that I watched the movie. It was an amazing movie. And I highly suggest that if you have not seen that movie, that you watch it. Okay. There's also a documentary that I'm going to dive in deep as well. But y'all know I have that attorney brain now. Cannot really turn that off anymore. So as the movie was going, as I was getting just engrossed and engulfed in all of the scenes and the acting and just really learning the true story about Miss Cleo, I started seeing the elements of intellectual property all up and through that movie. So I'm definitely dating myself, but I grew up in the era of when you watch TV. TV was not like it back then. TV was nowhere near the way that it is now. I actually remember when they started sending everybody those antennas because everything was going digital and they were getting rid of analog TVs. So if you remember analog television and on the cusp of analog and digital television, you remember Miss Cleo, you remember those 900 infomercials, those toll-free infomercials. Call me now, okay? So this horrible accent, but yeah, I grew up with that. So who is Miss Cleo? Obviously, I don't want to use it in the past tense because her spirit is still alive and well because her story is finally beginning to get out there and the truth is finally starting to get out there, which I'm so thankful for the producer of this particular movie, Miss Cleo, Her Rise and Fall, by Tim Reed. Tim Reed is an icon and a legend in the Black entertainment industry. So Miss Cleo was a Jamaican shaman, also a psychic reader, and she utilized tarot cards. And back then, hotlines were everything. So how y'all have these, I don't know, like you can call through Facebook and call people through Instagram, and I don't even know TikTok, like if you are even like these dating apps. They didn't have dating apps. So back then there were party hotlines. So like there was literally a hotline for everything. So it was if you wanted to meet up with somebody, there was the party hotline. If you wanted to shop, there was the home network, the home shopping network, and then you would call in and you would order things from there. Y'all, Billy Mays. He was one of the main guys from there, from the home shopping network, if I'm not mistaken. Rest in peace to him. But also psychic readings, because that was a big thing back then and it still is. So now instead of calling the psychic hotlines, people can just log on to Instagram with these witches and these psychics and all of this type of stuff, and they can get their readings. So nothing really has changed, but it was even more back then, okay, than it is now, because those networks, they were making bank, okay, the horoscopes and all of that. So if you were alive back in those days, you remember Miss Cleo, you remember to call me now, for your free psychic reading. And that's just what it was. And people called and people actually really enjoyed, calling this network. Full disclosure, I never called Miss Cleo. I grew up in well, one of my grandparents, I'll say this, one of my grandparents was essentially in a Christian cult. So that was just a big no-no for us to do that. And I mean, I didn't believe in any of that back then, and I still don't believe in it now. So thankfully, neither I nor anybody in my direct relatives that I know of called that hotline, because it charged a lot of money to call. It was like pay per minute. So she was a big time psychic. Okay, so a lot of people called, a lot of people, wanted their readings. So as I was watching the video, I started to learn really more of, not the video, the movie, but of course, movies, they're entertainment purposes, so they're always going to leave certain things out. But the gist of it is Miss Cleo was essentially the face of the Psychic Readers Network due to her persona that she created as this Jamaican shaman tarot reader, and she does have Jamaican roots. So a lot of people claim that she was lying about her Jamaican heritage, and I actually grew up believing that. I remember when she was at the top, she was everywhere. There was nowhere where you could go where you did not hear the call me now for your free psychic reading. Like, there was nowhere you could go and not hear that. Like, she was literally the it girl. Like, she was who these social media witches think that they are. Okay. So, I was falsely led to believe that she was lying about her Jamaican heritage, and that really was not the case, because I think it was like her grandparents came from Jamaica, so she really knew her Jamaican heritage. Now, the persona that she created, I mean, it was a persona that she created. It is what it is. People can, adopt their own identities, but essentially what happened was the Psychic Reader Network, they were owned by two guys, and they were just violating all types of Federal Trade Commission laws with deceptive advertising and deceptive unfair trade practicing and all of this crazy stuff to the tune of $1 billion. Okay, so this was really, really deep. But because Miss Cleo was the spokesperson and who brought so many people in to the Psychic Reader Network, that is how Miss Cleo's name got looped into everything. Okay, even though the lawsuits were essentially against the owners. But back to I know y'all like, well, how does this, deal with intellectual property? So the biggest takeaway that I got from the movie was the owners, once the lawsuit hit, once the media and the press went crazy, they tried to make it seem that everything was Miss Cleo's fault because this was done under the trademark of Miss Cleo. Okay, so Miss Cleo's name was not Cleo. Her birth name was Yuridale Harris, but she was operating under the brand name of Miss Cleo. But the interesting thing is, she actually used the name Miss Cleo in commerce well before she even joined the Psychic Readers Network. So there ended up being a situation where the owners of the Psychic Readers Network tried to claim that they owned the trademark of Miss Cleo, and that was just not the case whatsoever, because she had already utilized that name in past stage productions, because she was into plays, and acting and character development and things of that nature. So Miss Cleo was essentially a character. Now, the things that she did prior to she got to Psychic Reader Network, that's kind of up for debate. There is some history of her, scamming, some of the people who work for her on these stage productions. But the fact remains is that she did utilize the name Miss Cleo in commerce well before she joined the Psychic Reader Networks and just blew up and went everywhere. Okay, with the call me now. I'm not Jamaican. I'm not West Indian, so sorry, y'all. But that is how she sounded. Okay, so what we have here is the first use argument. Okay, so in the movie, when Steven and Peter tried to claim that they owned her, they owned everything, and Miss Cleo belonged to them, that was just a moot argument at that point because she had first use rights. Also, they tried to bring her their alleged ownership of the name Miss Cleo as if she was somehow connected in their intricate and elaborate FTC violation, deceptive advertising, and unfair trading practices scheme. She was not. So this is why I stress to people that you need to always have complete ownership of your brand. This is not a hobby. It is not a game. It is serious. Because when you go back through the movie, yes, I know it is a movie. She didn't fully, even though she had already utilized the name Miss Cleo in commerce before, she never really considered that at some point in time, the character Miss Cleo would actually blow up the way that it did. Okay? And so for that reason, a lot of people are still stuck in that same mindset to where they don't have the complete ownership of their brands, whether it's a name, whether it's a word mark, whether it's a slogan, whether it's a tagline, anything of that nature. They don't fully actually grasp the concept that just because you may not have been heard of at that particular point in time, that you are undeserving of a trademark. A lot of people want to wait until they blow up before they get a trademark, and it just doesn't work like that. It makes things more difficult. Okay, it makes things more difficult. So just always keep that in mind, y'all, that you could end up in a situation like Miss Cleo. So I'm not saying, you have to go the psychic route, but a lot of people truly underestimate themselves, and then they end up in situations like Miss Cleo ended up in. But thankfully, she has passed away, so rest in peace to her. But her name, the name Miss Cleo, was eventually cleared. It was nothing to do with her, and she was not a fraud. I grew up honestly believing that she was a fraud. She knew all about the elaborate FTC violation scheme that the business did, and that really was not the case. It really wasn't the case. So I'm really glad that I watched that movie, because it provided a lot of clarity for me. And I feel so bad with making the jokes because I didn't know. But there was a line in that movie that really stuck with me. It says that the truth spreads slower than a lie. And look, after all these years, I finally received the truth. And can y'all believe that there's actually somebody out there now with a pending trademark application for the name Miss Cleo under class 45 for psychic services. Like, come on, I need the trademark office to really stand up and stand 10 toes down for that and deny that application, because that is just ridiculous. But yeah, I don't want you all to continuously think that your brand does not have any worth or value just because you haven't been seen yet. That's actually how you end up in so many situations. So when you have ownership of your trademark, then all of these opportunities start to arise and they start to present themselves to you. You actually have more negotiation and more bargaining power because you essentially own the license to that intellectual property. It's the same with copyrights as well. I see that all the time in the indie music artists and rappers. They do not really take their crafts as serious as they should. And then when they're in a situation to where 10, 20, 15, all these years later, you have a big time artist that is known for taking people's stealing people's music and putting it in their albums. You end up in that situation. There's really nothing that you can do unless you have money to fight it. Now, had you taken care of things from the beginning, it really would not have been like that. So I just want you all to keep that in mind. There's some things that stuck out to me watching the Miss Cleo movie, Horizon Fall. I'm so glad that I received the truth, but those trademark elements definitely stuck out to me. And I'm just so glad that she was able to clear her name, and I'm so glad that I was able to get the truth. I'm Queen with Bell Terra Law Firm, also known as the Bell Lawyer. If you are watching the replay, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, do not forget to subscribe as well. Thank you.